You're listening to DraftKings Network.
Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. If you're a smoker or dipper looking to make a change, you really only need one reason to do it. But with Zyn nicotine pouches, you can find many. Zyn is America's #1 nicotine pouch. It's made with only 6 simple ingredients. There are lots of options when it comes to nicotine satisfaction, but there's only one Zyn. Learn more about Zyn and find your reason to make a change by registering online at Zyn.com.
Football season is here, and there's absolutely nothing better than game day. But it can be a little bit stressful. You're placing bets, you're setting fantasy lineups, you're figuring out the most comfortable position to sit on your couch for the next 12 hours. No one has time to think about this part. Cooking. Well, thanks to DoorDash, you don't have to worry about that. DoorDash is the best place to order all your game day favorites. Chicken wings, nachos, burgers, dogs, hey, maybe even a little chips and guac, something like that. Get a little salsa in there. It can all be delivered with DoorDash. So this football season, don't stress about the cooking. Kick back and enjoy game day thanks to DoorDash. DoorDash, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites.
Shadow Show.
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 Shadow in it.
Chris, I need some assistance here because it seems like there is a lot of chaos around here today. I wasn't expecting Stugotz and Billy because they were very busy crushing it in Chicago yesterday. And then I came in here and I saw Billy and Stugotz, and then I saw Izzy. And right now the Stugotz seat is empty, but David Samson is walking in right now with a lot of things in his hands. He's got glasses, tissues, a mouse. He has a mouse pad. He has a cup of water. He's got a computer.
No bag full of candy.
He's actually spinning plates and juggling things. What is the show chaos that we're about to embark on? You just came in here and said we have several University of Miami songs. Never has a victory against Cal felt so good in anything in sports. It's weird that University of Miami fans are taking a victory lap around the country after a victory over Cal. How many songs do we have today to celebrate the University of Miami's victory over a what has been historically a terrible Cal team?
We have 2 songs, and there's just so much energy in the room today. Like you said, Stugotz is here pinballing everywhere. We don't even have time for Stugotz. Stugotz, get out of here. Go do God Bless Football. We got David Samson. And this is, was that a big win for UM? Like
the way they did it was obviously enormous. It's not often that you're down 35-10 with 4 minutes left in the third quarter.
At 2 in the morning, Dan. 2 in the morning. It was so fun.
There was a lot that happened in that game. So Jeremy is wearing a bag on his head because after losing to Colorado, UCF also loses to Florida.
What a loser.
That's right.
He is wearing a bag, and I guess the people will see that shortly.
Yeah, fire Gus.
Jessica, there's no way you were up at 2 o'clock in the morning watching a 35-10 Miami deficit.
There is also no way that I watched the end of Sunday Night Football last night, but I can probably tell you exactly what happened, which is the Steelers' offense was bad and the defense was good until the last drive of the game.
That is what happened, and I believe that we saw a couple of things this weekend. You saw exactly how the Steelers will lose in the playoffs, and you also saw how the University of Miami is going to lose this season. Like, I know they won that game, but you absolutely saw how they lose a game this season. You cannot put better chemicals together than Mario Cristobal's coaching and Cam Ward's quarterbacking. It is such a good thing to have lived together.
We can all agree, though, the performance of the night, Rece Davis. Oh. I mean, my God, with a golf ball in his throat.
Power through, my guy.
He worked 20 straight hours, and there were touchdown calls where he wasn't saying anything at all. It was just milling about at the goal line because he was so exhausted. He worked from 4 a.m. until 11 p.m. West Coast time. Let's get started.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz podcast.
Today's episode is sponsored by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
It's got to be the biggest victory in the history of Vanderbilt sports, right? Of any kind. There's never been in the history of Vanderbilt sports, I don't even know the history of Vanderbilt sports, but there simply cannot be a bigger, better victory than beating Alabama.
I can't hear Jeremy through the back.
He hasn't said anything.
Yes, he did. He just said something.
He was telling David that they're a great baseball school. They've won multiple college
David, he was
World
talking
Series.
to you personally. He was not talking on air.
It's that seat.
It's not that seat. That's the Greg Cody seat that he needs to be sitting in if he's not going to understand who's talking on the air and who's not talking on the air.
Welcome, David.
Welcome, Izzy, as well. I want to...
Yes, Dan, though. I do want to talk about that real quick. Biggest Vanderbilt football win in history. Wow. Can we say that?
I don't think there's a bigger basketball win. They've had big wins, but they haven't had a win that I remember like that one. Like what, baseball? Like give me, anybody out there, give me whatever you got that's bigger than beating Alabama when I've got the stat somewhere. I think the last 3 times, this was from Timothy Burke, I think the last 3 times that Vanderbilt has played Alabama, they've lost like 150-3 the last 3 times.
I know how it could have been bigger if Saban was still coaching. Yeah. It feels a little smaller. Saban not being there just takes a little bit away from it.
No, Chris, they just came off a huge win against Georgia. They're the number 1 team in the country.
Just saying, if Saban was there, it'd be bigger.
Doesn't feel the same.
We're trying to see if we can get Rece Davis. The stat from Tim Burke is 148-3 the last 3 times that Alabama has played Vanderbilt.
It was their first time beating Alabama since 1984. Most of this room had not been born yet. Emphasis on most. I'm sorry, Izzy.
There are all sorts of stats from that game that we'll get to in a second, but I do want to celebrate what it is that the University of Miami did for a second, because Cam Ward had 277 fourth quarter yards. That's the most any player has had individually in 7 years. And I looked this up, okay? Iowa didn't have that many yards for the game against Ohio State. Michigan State didn't have that many yards for the game. UCLA didn't. Missouri didn't. FSU didn't. Tulsa didn't. Air Force didn't. Purdue didn't. Duke didn't. Jeremy's UCF didn't have 277 yards for the whole game against Florida. Rutgers and Nebraska played a game, and neither one of them against each other had 277 yards in the game. Stanford didn't have 277 yards in the game. Do you know how absurd it is to produce a fourth quarter that hasn't been produced by a single player in 7 years?
It's the regular season. Why is everyone so excited about this? Am I missing?
Because it's the biggest comeback the University of Miami has had in a century. They were down, the statistics on what it is that they were down, David. They were down 35-10 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter. They were down 38-18 with 10 and a half minutes left in the game.
Against an unranked team.
They were down 38-25 with 4 minutes left.
But this Saturday, David, was the Saturday where all ranked teams lose to unranked teams. This was the disease that was going through college football on Saturday when 5 of the top, I believe 11, had already lost by the time got on out there. And they're playing classic Atlantic Coast Conference rivalry game within spitting distance of the Pacific Ocean against Cal, and they were down 25 points in the second half, and they're a top 10 team now. So yeah, something there mattered, and they came back dramatically with probably the Heisman Trophy favorite.
I think Cam Ward was third in terms of gutsy performances. It was Rece Davis first. Second, it was Michael Irvin. Third, it was Cam Ward. Michael Irvin, I mean, that's impressive. The passion. I mean, is he the mascot? What is he?
He wasn't sweating so much this time.
This is what happens when College Game Day goes to Cal. It unleashed some sort of weird portal into hell Saturday morning, and we were all rolling around in it. It was one of the strangest Saturdays of college football in my lifetime, and the capper was Miami and Cal going till 2 a.m. Eastern time, and Miami coming from behind with that win. Some controversial calls at the end, a lot of people unhappy with the ACC refs for a second weekend in a row, but it was a really incredible college football game. Justin Wilcox, the Cal head coach, he is not going to sleep well for a while after giving up that lead. seed. But it was a big game, David. It was not a ranked team versus a ranked team, but it was huge for the momentum of Cal going into that game, having game day there for the first time and playing so well just until the last fourth quarter.
After UM benefits 2 weeks in a row from, all right, whether they were right calls, wrong calls, they benefited from calls late in the last 2 weeks. We can all agree on that. Can we agree that we're even for the whole national championship thing?
No.
It's 2 weeks.
Why?
That national championship, they're even. We call it even, and that's it. I mean, Dan, these last 2 weeks, they could have easily been losses.
Agreed. One was for the national championship. These two are just Virginia Tech and Cal.
One more bad call, and then they're even.
David is doing from this seat what Amin did on Friday when we had 506 yards from Kirk Cousins and Pete Alonso hits a homer. And now David and Amin, this is a terrible thing to have happen, okay? If you work at McDonald's all your life, eventually you don't like the French fries anymore. David and Amin have been watching sports for so long, they're numb to great sports things. They've gotten old, and sports things that happen that are exciting don't excite them. It's not possible to titillate them.
Wrong. I get titillated all the time. Several times a day. Watching games all day long.
How can you not
maximum titillation?
How can you not watch a team come down from 35-10 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter to win on the road and say, what's the big deal, when it's the biggest comeback they've had this century?
Because it's October 5th.
Yeah, but David, they're 6-0. All the other teams have lost. It's only the third time this century that the Hurricanes are 6-0. And this is the part that I think is going to be funny, because you can have 2 losses and still get into the playoff. You can't trust college kids to be consistent. Not players, just college kids. College kids of any kind. It doesn't make any sense that Alabama would lose that way against Vanderbilt after playing that way against Georgia.
To your point, Dan, before this game started with all the upsets, I was like, this is going to happen. UM is going to fall into that category because they always do. This is going to be the sad Mike Ryan game where he comes back and he says, oh, we're back to work, but really back to work this time. This was going to be it. And they come back, and in the college football 12-team playoff era, yeah, you could have 1 or 2 of these slip-ups, but when you avoid them, man, that feels great. And you can think, now, I'm not only certainly getting into that top 12, I might be one of those first 4 or 6 seeds, or whichever ones get to bye.
But especially if you were resigned to losing that game, which you kind of had to be at 35-10. At 35-10, you had to be resigned to the University of Miami's not going to come back from a 25-point deficit, even if I trust that offense.
I just knew they were going to come back. I think
she knew.
I think because I've just had so much tough luck this year with college football. I knew as a lifelong Cal Golden Bears fan, I wasn't going to get this one. But
were you watching?
Yeah, I actually did stay up.
You stayed up that late?
I stayed up
because it was Saturday?
I did keep dozing off, and normally when you doze off during a late college football game, someone scores and you kind of wake up. But Rece Davis, he was so consistent in his inflection, because that poor man, his voice, it was very Stugotz-like at the end of that game. Sort of slept through a couple of those ones. But when I woke up, David, I knew that this was just not going to happen for Cal, and I felt so bad for my fellow Golden Bears.
Nobody did Saturday night's UM game better than me. Fell asleep around mid-first quarter on the couch, woke up around 2 a.m. with 30 minutes left. It was the best. I was just like, what did I miss? I think it was like
that's exciting for you, not knowing what you missed.
But I was just like, holy shit, I'm witnessing a game, and I watched the final end of it, so I saw all the end.
Do you spend your time catching up? Because I've done that before, and instead of watching what's live, I end up trying to catch up on what I missed when I've dozed off. And then you end up missing what's so great about now.
I actually texted my dad, because I'm like, I bet he fell asleep, and he actually stayed up, which is the biggest shocker in all of this.
I'll tell you some of the things you missed, okay? Cam Ward's pick 6 is as bad a throw as anyone has ever made in a University of Miami uniform. Terrible. And all of the California players, I was deeply thankful that they got together in the end zone, and all of them started Karate Kid crane kicking. All of them were crane kicking in the end zone to celebrate what they thought would be a victory. Also, that Ott kid for California is very fast.
Jaden Ott, he's pretty good. OTTTOGO, Dan.
I want to play for you guys. excuse me, Jessica, I want to play for you guys Rece Davis being exhausted just so that you guys can see. Look at this here. This is one of the things you missed, Chris. And I want you to just listen to Rece Davis on the call because he was called in an emergency. He had done game day, and I think Dave Fleming was out for personal reasons. Listen to this call and listen to how Rece Davis doesn't have any idea what's going on here. It's the single worst touchdown call I've ever heard. Listen to this.
They just scored.
Whistles. And they signaled the touchdown. Damian Martinez.
That touchdown happened like 2 minutes ago.
That is a much-needed score for the Canes.
Really impressive drive by Miami. Damian Martinez.
Jessica's feeling terrible for Rece Davis.
I do. I mean, you guys are so mean to Rece. He had a long day. The band had a long day. Their call time was 2 a.m. for game day. This poor Cal marching band. The fans were up all day. They were just going crazy. It was such a great college football scene. I love when game day goes somewhere they've never been before and they invigorate a fan base that everyone just sort of doesn't really know anything about. And so we got the woke versus Coke game for the ages. And as many have said before me, we all should have known when this game went to 2 a.m., Coke was going to be victorious.
It's rare that the internet takes an L quickly because you could tell the internet was like, why are they going to Cal? What a weird game day. And within an hour, all the tweets were, this is great. This fan base showed up. It's rare that the internet takes an L.
To your point, Chris, when you talk about the officiating, Brock Osweiler said, and he wasn't wrong, that is an automatic targeting call. That was his analysis of a targeting call that should have been a targeting call that would have ended the game in Cal's favor. And we can do that if you guys insist on doing officiating talk, but I'd really rather talk about Cam Ward.
Let's do that, because my favorite Rece Davis call was one where he was saying how calm and relaxed Cam was as he was getting attacked by defenders, and eventually it was a terrible play, and he's like, well, maybe there he was too calm. And so I'm curious, Dan, how you sort of take in Cam Ward as somebody who's watched UM quarterbacks your whole life. He does seem calm, collected. He seems to have control of everything, but he also seems to play it a little too cool sometimes, and I'm wondering if that's going to come back to bite him.
It will.
You're done with this. So you think that this win and their prospects are...
I'm not done. You don't have to be absolute about this. He is not afraid of making mistakes. That's what I want from my quarterback. He's not... Look, one of the things that happened on the pick six, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but he throws the pick six, and I'm like, this is a disaster scenario where they're going to lose and lose badly on the road. And the first thing that happened in the middle of the field while the California players are crane kicking in the end zone is Restrepo and Cam are both slapping each other on the head in the middle of the field. Don't worry, it's fine. He's not afraid of anything.
The Miami Herald said that Restrepo said, we already know you're going to lead us to this comeback.
He's not
down 25 in the third quarter.
But you say that every time you're down, and it happens. It works out once in a while.
You are really doing shitty things to this game. Like you're squatting over the game, and you're simply shitting on this game.
Not a visual I wanted.
Yeah, no, that's not the visual. I'm trying to bring perspective to a show that is overreacting to the game.
Cal had lost 10 straight games to ranked teams. They were 1-26 against top 10 teams the last 20 years, and the only team that they beat is Washington State. You can have a measure of perspective and still be awed and hyperventilate about the fact that you don't often come back from 25 down when you're down 25 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter.
I see where David's coming from. It's not a huge Power 4 matchup. This is a Cal team that is new to the ACC. They've struggled. This is why they've never hosted College Game Day before, because their double-digit win seasons are very few and far between. However, it was a big comeback. So, maybe Miami shouldn't have let Cal gash them so much in the first half, let up I think it was 5 plays of over 50 yards.
So many 50-yard plays.
And that's fair. But still, a comeback, especially ACC football after dark, it was a fun environment. It was a fun college football game. And I think, as a Miami show, I get why everyone is feeling excited about Cam Ward today and the comeback. Even though, like I said, not good that 2 weeks in a row, Miami playing a little down to the competition could be very easily 0-2 right now in the ACC, which would be a disaster. But both times coming away with wins in these sort of late game comebacks.
Miami could easily lose at Louisville, and I do believe that we can say pretty absolutely with conviction they'd lose and not be favored against 5 SEC teams. Like, there are 5 SEC teams that I wouldn't favor them against because even though they're 6-0, they've been exposed the last couple of weeks, allowing so many of those 50-yard plays. I was a little bit torn, though, because a kid from Miami was playing quarterback for Cal. I've got to root for Fernando Mendoza. Like, how can I not root for Fernando? Izzy, you were going to say, I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, I was just wanting to counter sort of David's take here, because when you look at what a national champion ends up being, and not saying that the Canes are going to be national champions, but every single game that is not a loss can be super dramatic. Like, I remember when the Gators won and Tim Tebow lost a game, I believe, to Ole Miss at home, and I believe they were unranked at the time, and he gave this dramatic speech, and they came back and won the national championship that year, and everybody pointed to that loss. If UM goes ahead and wins the national championship, they're going to point to probably the instant replay against Virginia Tech and this game right here as the most dramatic win, because they probably don't go the same path and win a national championship if they lose this game.
Yeah, no, they won't. If they win the national championship, they'll go to the CFP and the rounds they had to win the national championship. No matter how you slice it, Miami's season won't be defined by this. Do you think the Patriots, when they came back to beat the Falcons, is that noteworthy because it was the Super Bowl? That's my view. It's not noteworthy week 4.
Okay, so the only game that matters is the last one? There are no other memorable games except for the last one.
There was a huge, is Buffalo Frank Reich? He had a huge comeback. Somebody help me.
Yes, Buffalo against the Titans. Yes.
But it was early, and they didn't end up winning.
It was the playoffs.
So it was exciting. That was the
Okay, but
playoffs.
we can't talk about the playoffs because they haven't happened yet. So we're talking about this game.
There's so much else going on. I've got 70 pages of
you just
things.
mentioned Frank Reich. Like, it's a memorable game, obviously, if you're mentioning Frank Reich.
David, the show is 5 hours long. We'll get to baseball, okay?
I'm not feigning enthusiasm about this. I don't even understand how David arrives at his position of watching that particular game that has led our audience. How many songs do we have, Chris? How many?
2 songs.
We've got. Do you know how rare it is for a game to produce 2 songs to motivate and inspire our audience? Play one of them, please. Which one is this? What's the context for this song?
This one is just celebrating how late this game went and just what a crazy game it was.
All right, let's hear it.
Handoff. No, he throws. Left side of Arroyo. He lunges. He's got it. Touchdown. It's a touchdown. Miami has tied the game.
The Golden Bears, right out the gate, they had us dead to rights for most of the game. I'm thinking, why is Cal even in the ACC? It's just like Miami to disappoint me. And I had some gin and tonics, or like 8. Then the Canes got the dub that day. They came from behind, 'cause Cam Ward is great. He's got Heisman hype, and we're the best team in state, 'cause we can pay guys 6 figures.
What a comeback on a day when upsets abounded.
I don't know if I've ever
sounds
seen
exhausted, Rece Davis.
anything play out like the way this football game did. And the Miami Hurricanes coming back down 35-10 in the second half.
Life is a golden cane. It's pretty damn good.
I just saw her in concert. It was an old person concert with Sting and
No, that's Andrew Streeter.
Pearl Jam and Devo and Alanis Morissette.
Did they end with Whip It?
They did not. It was their 4th song. It was weird that Devo would choose that as their 4th song instead of ending with it. They didn't even do I Can't Get No Satisfaction.
Hey DraftKings fans, are you ready to elevate your game day snacking experience? This college football season, we're feeling the cheesiest with Cheez-It. That's right, delicious Cheez-It crackers not only satisfy your snack cravings for game day excitement, but they are also amplifying your football watching experience with a new daily fantasy sports game. Best of all, since Cheez-Its is made with 100% real cheese, the game is 100% free to play with a chance of winning real cash. Be sure to carefully select your favorite Cheez-It flavor to snack on. White cheddar, extra toasty, or maybe you're an OG fan, while you select your weekly players for college football's cheesiest challenge all season long. So snack and play like a champ with Cheez-It.
Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com/Cheez-It for full details.
Football season is here, and there's absolutely nothing better than game day. But it can be a little bit stressful. You're placing bets, you're setting fantasy lineups, you're figuring out the most comfortable position to sit on your couch for the next 12 hours. No one has time to think about this part. Cooking. Well, thanks to DoorDash, you don't have to worry about that. DoorDash is the best place to order all your game day favorites. Chicken wings, nachos, burgers, dogs, hey, maybe even little chips and guac, something like that. Get a little salsa in there. It can all be delivered with DoorDash. So this football season, don't stress about the cooking. Kick back and enjoy game day thanks to DoorDash. DoorDash, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites.
Dan Batard.
Oh, I like firing people. So I take the opportunity to fire whenever I possibly can because I can use it as a learning experience for them and try to help them out and try to point out what they did wrong. But in this case, the employee was enough levels below where I was that I did not do the firing, but I had it done within moments of discovery.
I love the idea. I like firing people. It's just absurd. It's absurd.
Stugotz.
I'm talking about people who I fire who deserve it, who have done something that actively requires me to fire them. It is my unadulterated pleasure to do so.
This is the Dan Batard Show with the Stugotz.
California had never hosted a game day. California is rarely a full stadium. It doesn't happen very often. You give no weight to that, David? You give no weight to them being strong enough with the momentum of having a day's worth of energy behind them and getting up 35-10. You still shrug your shoulders at that.
Don't mischaracterize it. I'm not shrugging my shoulders. I'm merely saying that allocating this amount of showtime and saying that this Cam Ward, and it was an amazing performance, but it's not the proper time to give him his flowers for this moment.
It's too soon, Dan. It's clearly too soon.
He has more yards and more touchdowns than anyone in the sport.
I'm not on your side here, David.
I know.
When do I get to celebrate
Felt
him?
like you could have been.
When do I get to celebrate him, if not when they're 6-0 and he's got more passing yards and more touchdowns than anyone in the sport?
I want you to celebrate in January.
David, if this was hour 2.
It's not January!
If this was hour 2, I'd be with you. We're in the middle of the first segment. Like, give us a Christ, man.
Jeremy's over here with a bag over his head because his team in October is awful. Lost to Colorado and Florida in back-to-back games, and he doesn't even want to show his face. It's okay to spend 11 minutes talking about Cam Ward and the Hurricanes, a top 10 team, winning what is it, after prime time?
After dark,
winning an after dark game,
after
which
dark.
they've never really had before. I thought it was pretty dang cool.
Why do broadcasters think it's dangerous? And like when it gets after midnight on a broadcast, they're like, "Welcome to after." It's just like Mike Tirico did this last night. Once it turned midnight, he mentioned it like after every play. He's just like, "Hey guys, it's midnight football here."
That's not creepy at all.
I know. I just don't get they just feel. Do they feel dangerous? Like they can get away with a little more?
They know things are getting wacky.
Can you guys get for me again the touchdown call that happened after midnight? Because I want to play for you. And I don't even mean this as an indictment of Rece Davis. He was clearly tired. He'd been working since 4 a.m. His voice didn't work correctly. I'm going to tell you, though, when the score was obvious, and I want you to hear all the sound afterward. They're at the goal line, and they're scoring. Go ahead and play it. And they score. Go ahead and play it. Right there.
Whistles. And they signal the touchdown.
What is Brock Osweiler doing in the booth, you think, there?
Gets it in.
A full 9 seconds
a
after the
much-needed score
runner
for the
crossed the
Canes.
goal line, he announced the
I'm
touchdown.
picturing Brock Osweiler in the booth like, go, Rece, this is your time, go.
What was the local time?
It was a 7:30 local kickoff, so in the fourth quarter is probably like, I don't know, 10:30.
Do you carry cash? That's a fine for all of the phlegm that you just threw all over the microphone because you didn't clear your throat without the microphone off. Do you have $5? Do you carry cash?
Or did you do that to celebrate Rece Davis? Because that's next level.
Yes, that would have been comedically artistic. Jessica, can you explain to me what happened in the Vanderbilt Alabama game?
Yes, I can. Okay, Vanderbilt, Alabama was incredible. So Clark Lee is the head coach at Vanderbilt, and I want to start with him because he went to Vanderbilt, he played fullback there, and then became a linebackers coach in college football, became a defensive coordinator. He's actually the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame, and the team that went to the playoff a couple times. He's coached a ton of NFL players. He's a great coordinator, and then he gets a call to come back to his alma mater and coach Vanderbilt, be the head coach at Vanderbilt, knowing all of the sort of resource limitations and all of the disadvantages that you have as the head coach.
But Nashville's on fire these days.
At Vanderbilt. Well, yes, Nashville I wouldn't mind moving from Indiana to Nashville either. But anyways, that's besides the point.
That's the biggest recruiting pitch they have, right? We're in Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville's awesome. So Clark goes to Vanderbilt, really up and down 3 seasons for him. His second season, they actually do pretty well. I think they won 5 games. They won a couple SEC conference games, which is nothing to be snarky about, Chris Cody.
You were going to sneeze at it.
He was about to sneeze at it.
You were going to sneeze at it.
And you were like, he had a good season. I'm like, oh, let me hear what
almost
this was
went
like.
bowling. I mean,
5
it's
games.
Vanderbilt. It's Vanderbilt football. Vanderbilt football is the butt of every joke in the SEC. When people talk about conference realignment, they're like, Vanderbilt needs to get relegated before the SEC gets bigger because they're not even on the same competitive level. Whatever. Blah blah blah. So, anyways, Clark Lee goes back to his alma mater. Has had a lot of ups and downs, but in this past offseason, they bring in a ton of these New Mexico State players, including last year's CUSA Player of the Year, Diego Pavia, the quarterback, who led this amazing Vanderbilt offense on Saturday. They also bring over the offensive coordinator, the head coach, and I think a tight end, a running back, and a couple other players. So Vanderbilt has this new sort of unique spread option offense that they're running on Saturday. And Alabama coming off this huge emotional win over Georgia at home, the Georgia comeback and then the Ryan Williams touchdown, everything. They go to Vanderbilt, a team that historically they dominate, destroy. Nick Saban has said previously, Vanderbilt's the only school in the SEC that is easy to play at. He's mocked them. And so Vanderbilt is aware of all of this. Clark Lee is aware of all of this. Clark Lee played at Vanderbilt, like I said. But Clark Lee has taught his players and has told his players they can win any game that they want.
Vandy culture.
You laugh at David, you're kind of rolling your eyes at Restrepo and Cam Ward being like, oh, we can win this game, and that's what everyone says. That's not true. Sometimes college football teams do not think they have a chance. But Clark Lee's Vanderbilt team actually thought they had a chance in this game. And they started the season really well. They beat Virginia Tech, which was a huge upset early in the season. And then they almost beat a top 10 Missouri team in overtime. Basically lost on a missed field goal in that game. So Vanderbilt is kind of coming off of we have something here with this offense. And Clark Lee, obviously very good defensive mind, like I've mentioned. So they're ready to play Alabama. They run this kind of unique, weird offense. Pavia is a absolute maniac. I mean that in the most complimentary way. He is the perfect point guard for the offense that Vanderbilt's running. And Alabama defensively was just on their toes the entire time and was not able to stop this offense. And so Vanderbilt scores 40 points on Alabama in this game. Alabama's offense not able to overcome that, even though they did have another great Ryan Williams touchdown, 58-yard pass, and the end-around touchdown at the end that was pretty nifty. But it turns into the biggest upset I think in Vanderbilt football history.
It has to be.
And Clark Lee gets to say, as the head coach that comes home to his alma mater against all the odds, he upset the #1 team in the country at home in front of the home fans at an active construction site stadium.
Didn't realize there was that much feel good in this win. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. This is the flip side of college football. Obviously, on the Alabama side, devastating loss. The players are probably feeling really upset, really embarrassed. Going the highs of the Georgia game to the lows of losing at Vanderbilt is terrible. And Kalen DeBoer, I assume currently on Alabama Sports Talk Radio, is getting destroyed. Paul Feinbaum's show today is going to be must listen for everyone out there.
Not for David. He hates this shit in October. It's too soon.
Exactly. The flip side, though, is Clark Lee and the team and the staff that he has built at Vanderbilt and the players that he's brought into Vanderbilt that bought into what he was selling get to celebrate this and be really proud of this moment for the rest of their lives.
Juju, put it on the poll, please. Does the University of Miami have to do it in January, in October? Also, Jeremy, what is Vanderbilt's record against top 10 teams all time?
Against top 5 teams, Dan, they were 0-60 headed into this game.
Okay.
Is that goalpost in the river worthy?
That was so awesome. That thing must have traveled. Did they track how many miles that thing traveled? Because that river is not that close to the stadium.
I saw some estimate that it was 2.5 miles from the stadium to the river where they dumped it in.
I saw some funny video of some guy videoing himself. He's like, I don't even go here. And he's just carrying it.
What's the point of that? What kind of celebration is that? This thing, this sort of H, upside down H, we're just going to throw into a body of water.
That's what everyone does now. That's the new thing is tear down the goalpost, throw it in a body of water.
It had a police escort at one point.
David, if beating a top 5 team when you're 0-60 against top 5 teams in your history is not walk the goalpost to the river worthy, then what do you need to happen to have it make it something that's worthy?
I'm almost positive that nothing is goalpost in the river worthy. I'm trying to think of any possible victory but people, what they're looking for, here's where I was. Everybody's looking for an excuse to celebrate, and you just manifested it. Hey, guy, I don't even go here. I just want to be part of this thing that could lead to destruction or to something that's going to cause bachelorette parties.
Why would you be against celebration and joy? What's the lane you're trying to occupy today?
No, I've been in this lane my whole life.
Joyless?
No, it's not. Why is it that you have to destroy property after winning a title?
They should have been chanting, let's have perspective. Let's have perspective.
Nuance.
Nuance.
Make fun all you want.
This was a fine victory.
What if you were in charge of dealing with the fact that there is destruction of property?
David, I saw a security guard videotaping this whole thing. Everyone was so excited to be there. It was a crazy moment. It's probably do we have the clip of Lane Kiffin watching during his press conference? Because I feel like what I just spat out in 4 minutes, he encapsulated in one very easy sentence.
You did sound like you were hyperventilating a little bit. You're very excited. Understandable. It's an excitable victory, even though David is against excitement. Let's play the Lane Kiffin, the video and the sound of him watching this.
How would you assess just sort of the health of your team right now?
How many timeouts does Alabama have? One left.
They had all 3 a few minutes ago.
They have 1 left, 1:18. All right.
He's rooting for Alabama.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing going on. Better watch. You're not going to see it probably ever again. What was the question?
They're just hey, what do you make of your team's effort? How many times? He's you can see him squinting, looking at a TV in the back. How many timeouts does Alabama have left? Guys, you got to look at this. This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You hear Lane Kiffin there? Once-in-a-lifetime thing, David. But it would have been better with Saban.
If everything were once in a lifetime that's called once in a lifetime, there'd be very few lifetimes.
What? Okay.
That's deep.
You know what? Hold on a second. Give me just a second here. I'm going
What
to...
was that?
I'm just,
Got a minor penalty, 2 minutes for ruining comedy.
I would have gone with high shticking. But let's also play although I don't know what character he's being. Let's play.
He's not being a character.
I don't know
He's just being himself.
What this is.
He's not shticking.
Nick Saban, the clip of Nick Saban on, I think it was the McAfee show, talking about playing at Vanderbilt, that Vanderbilt played on their video board on a loop after Vanderbilt upset Alabama on Saturday.
But the only place you play in the SEC that's not hard to play is Vanderbilt. Because when you play at Vanderbilt, you have more fans there than they have. And that's no disrespect to them. It's just the truth. When we played in Nashville, we had more fans, Alabama fans, than what they had, Vanderbilt fans.
They had only beaten Bama one other time in 1984. Vanderbilt had not beaten a top 10 team since 2007, and they'd never beaten a number one team. And this stat, I think, is the best of the stats that I can give you on Vanderbilt. All time, they have a winning percentage of 48%. That is worse than Ball State, Utah State, Duke, Rutgers, San Jose State, North Texas, East Carolina. They are a historically bad football program. They are the doormat of the SEC. To see them beat Alabama after Alabama had just beaten Georgia, and I just got done telling you, I think there are 5 teams that Mike Ryan would even concede in the SEC feel better than the University of Miami does.
Do they still? Because Tennessee doesn't feel so good either right now. They just lost.
Oh, also, I'm curious, like, were you doing a Jeremy pun there, a doormat? Because they're the doors, Commodores?
I was not doing a Jeremy pun there. But the
missed opportunity.
No, an opportunity that I chose correctly to not do anything Jeremy pun related on that one.
Hey folks, it's Mike. From defending your favorite team after a bad loss to obsessively checking your fantasy lineups, football fandom is bigger than just Sundays. Miller Lite knows the passion that comes with rooting for your team. Like the debate that sparked in 1975. Great taste versus less filling. So, what is the best thing about the original light beer? Let it be both. Yeah, let it be both. The fact that it has great taste and is also less filling. You don't have to pick your favorite because Miller Lite keeps it simple. Undebatable quality, great taste at only 96 calories. It's a beer that strips away everything that you don't need and holds on to what matters most. The original light beer since 1975. Make your game time taste like Miller time. Tastes great and is less filling. Let it be both. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/Dan. Or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
It's time to review the top 3 highlights of the day. I'm joined as always by my co-anchor Snoop.
Hey, what up, though?
Snoop, number 1 has to be getting the new iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence at T-Mobile.
Yeah, you should hustle down to T-Mobile like a dog chasing a squirrel, chasing a nut.
Nice analogy, Snoop. Dogs do love to chase squirrels.
And squirrels love to chase those nuts.
On to highlight number 2, at T-Mobile, families can save 20% every month versus the other big guys.
That is very impressive. You know, y'all can take some of those savings and buy some Snoop merchandise.
That's exactly what I'm planning on doing with my savings, Snoop. Now, take it away, Snoop.
Head to T-Mobile.com and get the new iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence on them. Now drop that jingle.
With 24 monthly bill credits, eligible trade-in on Go 5G Next. Well-qualified customers plus tax and $35 connection charge. Cancel entire account before receiving 24 bill credits, and credit stop and balance on required finance agreement due. Bill credits end if you pay off device early. See how you can save versus the other big guys at T-Mobile.com/switch. Apple Intelligence coming fall 2024.